Hey guys, it's Will here from Singletrack Magazine, and the third and final bike in our UK-made full suspension group test comes from Swarf Cycles. This is called the Contour. Now the Contour is a brand new model from Swarf, and the bike we've got here is actually a pre-production version, so very, very new, very fresh. This is a short travel 29-inch trail bike, so we've got 115mm travel on the back, and that's paired to a 130mm fork on the front. A reverse mullet, if you will. The first thing you can probably tell by looking at this bike and those slender tubes is it is indeed made from steel. That's quite unusual because most full suspension frames out there are made from either aluminium or carbon fibre. This is made from steel, however, and that allows Adrian Bedford of Swarf Cycles to make these in the UK. There will be 4 sizes available in this bike. Adrian won't be offering custom geometry on the Contour. He reckons he's got the numbers spot on, and we'll go through some of those numbers now. So we're looking at a 66.5 degree head angle on the front, 75.5 degree seat angle, and on the medium size that I'm riding, about a 440mm reach. So not too racy, not too enduro, kind of somewhere in between. And after all, this is a bike designed to go uphill and downhill and long days in the saddle. The rear swing arm on this is a single rigid piece of steel, so there are no pivots on the back. The seat stays themselves, if you look closely, are actually flattened out ever so slightly, and the idea there is that they'll actually flex slightly as the suspension cycles through its travel. Without pivots on the back, you're looking at a slightly lighter, simpler and easier to maintain system, and the swing arm has been oriented so that there is minimal flex in the first place through those seat stays. And if you do take the shock out, you can actually feel a small amount of resistance as those seat stays bend through the travel, but it's very, very minimal. Now the suspension design itself, we've got a CNC machined alloy rocker linkage compressing that rear shock. On our test bike here, we have a Cane Creek double barrel coil inline shock with no fewer than 5 damping adjustments. The suspension feel is really, really nice. It's not the plushest that I've felt, but it is very, very smooth. It's got a really nice controlled feel through that 115mm travel. One thing I have noticed is it does feel genuinely like there is more travel than that. A lot of brands say that with their bikes, that they have more travel than the number says on paper, but this bike genuinely feels like that's the case, and I don't believe it's necessarily through the linkage design or anything going on there. It's more due to there being a little bit more compliance with that steel back end. The rear wheel has a bit more give and a little bit more flexibility to move around on the trail, and in my experience it's not a bad thing. Flex is often a dirty word when you're talking about full suspension bikes. This bike, it doesn't have a huge amount of lateral movement on the rear wheel, but there's just the right amount of twist through the back end that means that the rear wheel can hold a line and move around rocks and roots when you're kind of charging downhill, rather than bucking you offline, you know, pinging around like a pinball. So it feels really smooth to ride, really controlled, surprisingly capable when you point it into pretty ugly stuff. Downside of that steel frame construction is it is quite heavy, so you are carrying around more weight, and definitely compared to the other 2 bikes on test, you do feel that on the climbs with this bike. It's a little draggier, and you know you're pushing around a bit more mass. But if that's not a big deal to you, you will get a beautiful riding trail bike that's very smooth, very compliant, and enjoys all sorts of different types of riding. Now, if you'd like to read the full review of the Swarf Contour, make sure you check out issue 119 of Singletrack Magazine. Jump on singletrackworld.com for more information. Thanks guys, to root.